Hello everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the ways of enjoying studying English. It's a very interesting and fascinating area. So let's start. I have prepared some sentences and it will be informal, very friendly kind of talk. So don't expect a formal lecture kind of thing. These are some random sentences because I believe in learning by noticing. The more you notice, the more you learn. And what to notice and how to notice, I'm going to discuss today in detail. So let's see these sentences. The first is, the dog was barking while chewing the bark. So when you come across a sentence like this, or when you hear the same word twice and used in two different senses, or in two different ways, sometimes with similar meanings, sometimes with absolutely different meanings, then pay attention to such items. So here the first word bark is for the process. A dog barks, as you know. A dog makes a particular sound which is bark. So a dog barks. And here the second instance of the same word bark is a noun, and here it is the bark of a tree as a noun. So the first bark is a verb. The dog was barking, and at what time? While chewing the bark. So it's a very funny situation. You can imagine a dog barking, and you can imagine that dog while barking chewing a piece of tree, bark of a tree. Now the second is, he writes with his right hand. So here you can hear the word write and another instance write. They both are pronounced in the same way, but their meanings are different. And I'm sure you know that there are many other words which are pronounced in the same way, but their meanings are different. So here write is writing, and the second right is the right hand, and another right, rite, is also possible, like nuptial rites and funeral rites, that is rites, rites. And by the way, the word right here can also have multiple meanings. Here in this context it is the right hand, but you can also say this is my birthright. So that's another meaning. Then right wing party, that's another meaning. So one word can have multiple meanings. Then third, she left, and then only he was left. So she left, that means she left that place. And after she left that place, there was only one person, he was left. So here you can see the meanings of this first left, leaving, going away from one place, and the second word here left means what is left after others had left. So both are actually opposite meanings, but they are easy to understand because we are accustomed to this type of sentences. She left, and then only he was left behind, like that. Then fourth is, they are like two peas in a pod. Now in English, there are many idioms like this. When two people, they look similar, then you can say they are like two peas in a pod, like twins, for example. So here, sometimes it's easy to understand the meaning, because if you take that vegetable, I'm sure you've eaten that dish, peas pulao. So when you see peas in a pod, they are all similar. There may be 2, 3, 4 peas, and if you take a pod, then open that pod and you can see peas, they are almost similar. So from that you can make a guess that they are two similar people, or similar siblings. But it is not always the case. Like sometimes you cannot make a guess about the meaning of any idiom. There may be some story behind that idiom, which if you know, then it's easy. For example, pass the buck. Now, pass the buck is an idiom which means to avoid doing your work, and you shift the responsibility, you ask somebody else to do your work. So that is pass the buck. Now, if you know the story behind pass the buck, then probably you can understand the meaning. But if you don't know the story, then it's difficult. And by the way, if you want to know the story, just send me a WhatsApp message. Then fifth is he was alarmed, scared and terrified. Now, English is a very rich language in terms of vocabulary. There are hundreds and thousands of words. They may be similar, but not exactly the same, but similar. And sometimes good writers, to create a particular impact or to create a scene, they use a variety of words. So here we have alarmed, scared and terrified. So here you can also see the degree of intensity that is changing. First is alarmed. You become conscious of that dangerous situation. Then you are scared, you are worried, you are frightened, and then you are terrified. Then sixth is you can crawl, leap, march or skip. Right? So they are in some way connected. They form a group of words, but they are all different. Babies crawl. Some insects also crawl, if you know. Some creatures, they crawl. That's why we have creepies and crawlies. And leap is to you jump and go one step further ahead. Like that, you leap. Like a leap of faith. That's an idiom, by the way. And then march. Soldiers, they march. Then skip. I'm sure you as a child you might have skipped a rope. So skipping is a very good exercise. Then you also have many other words in this category. Actually, I have just given you a few words. So they form a group of words with some particular context. Here the context is movement. Then seventh is the tiny may float and the huge may sink. So here tiny and huge, they are opposite words, antonyms. Then there is a bookshelf in the classroom. Now what do you notice here? In this sentence you can see, in fact it's a very, very common feature of English, that two different words, they are so often used together that they become one word. So book and shelf, actually these are two different nouns, but here they come together, they form one word. Classroom, for example, class and room. Many people, they do not, unless and until they pay attention to the word, they never know that it is actually made up of two words. And if you now notice whatever words you use in your day-to-day life, many of them may be made up of two independent words. Like when you say wristwatch, so wrist is a word and watch is a word, and they are used together. An interesting feature of English vocabulary. The ninth is he's pro internationalizationism or internationalization. So here you can see the basic word is nation. From that we have national, we have nationalize, we have nationalization. Then those who support, they are pro. So we can make a lot of words by adding prefixes and suffixes. That's a very powerful feature of the English language. The next is life is like a dream. Now there are two ways you can compare ideas or concepts. So here life is like a dream, in that the word like is used, and that's why it is called a simile. But suppose you remove the word like and you say life is a dream, then it becomes a metaphor. In fact, in the 11th example we have a metaphor. The mind is an ocean. So here we are not saying the mind is like an ocean, but it is an ocean. So it is a metaphor. Whereas with the words like, you create a simile. But they both are very widely used in English, in literature, in even day-to-day life. I'm sure you know similes with as and as black as coal, or as easy as ABC, as easy as falling off a log, as easy as pie. So there are many similes. As cool as cucumber. So similes with the word as or like, and metaphors without any words showing comparison. The next is, do not take off your shoes before the takeoff. Now here, one take off, the first is a phrasal verb, and which means to remove. So don't take off your shoes, don't remove your shoes before the takeoff. Now here, takeoff with a hyphen, it is a noun and it means to leave the ground. It is for a plane. So when the plane takes off, that is the takeoff. So do not take off your shoes before the takeoff. And 13, it's a part of a sentence actually, from a novel. Then suddenly the penny dropped. Now if you don't know this idiom, it is almost, or any such idiom, then it is almost impossible to guess the meaning unless you have the whole context. Suppose the whole paragraph is given, you are familiar with the story, and then you can probably make a safe guess about the meaning of this idiom. But if you are given such a part of it, then either you know it or you don't know. That's it. So it's important to know the meanings of idioms. They are common currency in the English language. So here the penny drop means everything became clear. The speaker or the writer understood everything. Then 14, do you know the grammatical term for words such as on, in, from, after, before, under, within, without? So the answer is yes, it's preposition. Now if you notice carefully, this word has actually two words, pre and position. So pre means before and position means the place. Now why is this word called, or why is the entire set called preposition? Because these words come at the beginning of the phrase. So for example, when I say on the table, where is my mobile? Yeah, it's on the table. So when I say on the table, on comes first. Where are we? We are in the room. So when you say we are in the room, we don't say the room in or the in room. So prepositions come at the beginning of that phrase. Behind my house, under the table, right? From the library, after the session. So all these are pre. Their position is pre. Now if you translate these into any Indian language other than Sanskrit, then you will definitely find that preposition, the meanings of these words, they are at the end. Like on the table, you translate in your mother tongue, and there is a possibility that you will find the meaning of on at the end. So in Indian languages, prepositions are at the end, but in English they are at the beginning. That's why we say pre and position, preposition. Interesting. Then what is the meaning of the word that is pronounced I? Suppose somebody asks you this question. You can never say, because I can be I for me. I can be that pronoun I. I can be I of a person, the organ with which you see. I can be eye of a needle through which you pass the thread. I can be of a storm. I can be on potatoes. I is also a name of an animal in North America, which makes that I sound. Sailors, they sometimes say aye sir when they have understood the command. In Parliament, sometimes ayes have won, it means those who say yes have won. So the meaning of I is not in the word itself. It is always the context and the quote text that decides the meaning. Then another example, you need to introspect about your motives. Introspect. Now, suppose you have not heard this word, but if you have heard any word containing any part of this word, then probably you can make a safe guess about the meaning. So here intro is inside, within, and spect, I'm sure you know the meaning of spectacles. Spectacles are useful for seeing clearly. With the help of spectacles you can see clearly. So spect is about seeing. Spectators are people who watch a match, for example. Spectators in the stadium. Then if there is a crime, then inspector will come, he will inspect. So there also the meaning is see. When you think about prospects, what are my prospects in this company? So you are thinking about future, you are looking at your future. Even prospectus that you get from a college, that also gives you a glimpse of what you are going to see there after you take admission. Suspect, you doubt somebody. So spect is about seeing, and introspect, you see within. Right? Now let's say something about pronunciation. How do you pronounce the letter A in a word? Now it's impossible to say, because in a word like apple you will say a. In a word like ask you will say a. In a word like able it is a. In a word like all it is o. In a word like ability it is a. So we can very clearly see that a letter does not have a fixed sound. T can be t in tea, it can be sh in nation, it can be ch in nature, and it can be nothing in listen, silent. So it is impossible to guess pronunciation of any word. Similarly, U, one of the common mispronunciations is B-U-R-Y. B-U-R-Y, some people pronounce bury, some people say bury, but it is berry. And with the same pronunciation we have another word also, berry, that fruit. But B-U-R-Y is berry. From that we have burial place, burial ground. How do you pronounce education? Now some people might say education, some people might say education. They both are acceptable, because in English there are two rules. When d is followed by y, it can become j. So edu becomes edu, education. And when t is followed by y, it can become ch. So the next word tubes is generally spoken in connected speech as tubes. So tube becomes chew. I'm sure you will be able to find out many words and phrases like that. Then assume is a verb, and from that we have a noun assumption. Assume, assumption. Consume, consumption. Then don't and you, these two words when you speak together, t and y, t after y, it becomes ch. Like tubes becomes tubes, similarly don't you becomes don't you. Why don't you try this? In the same way, d followed by y becomes j. So would you becomes would you. What would you like to have? And same schedule for British English, schedule for American English. So these are common pronunciation pitfalls, I would say. We have to pay attention to such things, and it's very interesting. And more interesting is when a word, one word with two different pronunciations will have two different meanings. For example, are you content with your content? So content means satisfied as an adjective, and content is the noun, things inside something. So are you content with your content? I often ask this question to students and teachers and other professionals. Whatever professional competence do you have, are you happy with that? Are you content? If you are content, that means you've stagnated, you've stopped progressing, you've stopped developing. So never ever be content with your content. Keep learning, keep growing, keep sharpening your skills. Next, what can you learn from the following pairs? Now it's very easy to see that bad and bade. So by adding e at the end, you are actually changing the first vowel sound as well. So bad has a, and by adding e at the end it becomes bade. Similarly, sat and sate. Sate means to satisfy. Then can and cane. Sag, and here the consonant sound also changes. Sage. Right? So here this you can see I was actually making the list, and then I have reached up to 20, and I thought let me make a video, and after that if I have some more ideas I will add. So this is a long process. Keep learning, keep sharing, enjoy, and please do subscribe to our Fluentlingua channel and also our social media platforms, Instagram and LinkedIn. Thank you very much. I am Dharmendra Sheth, founder Fluentlingua, Surat.